So I'm very excited to be here. I've invited a legend of the board gaming industry to Perfect Information Towers, and we have Uli Blennemann from Spielbergs, and we're here to talk about one of the most exciting developments in gaming in the last 5 years, I would say. So briefly, tell us what we should be so excited about.
I'm a little bit surprised to hear that this is one of the most exciting things of the last 5 years. I suppose it's that we are talking about a new edition of Die Macher, but I'm not entirely sure. So you have to let me know what is so exciting.
Yeah, it's a new version of Die Macher, and the reason it's so exciting is because it's one of those legendary, it's almost the first Euro game, right? And people talk about it in reverential tones, and they talk about Die Macher and how wonderful it is. I was lucky enough, a friend of mine managed to pay altogether too much money about 4 or 5 years ago, to pick up a copy on eBay. And it's all of these people who've been into gaming for years talk about it in these reverent terms. And very few people have played it. Do you know why it's taken so long? Because it was a game from the 80s. Do you know why it's taken so long to get a reprint?
No, actually not. So one reason probably is that gaming has changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. There was an edition, I think, in 97, so a reprint, pretty much a reprint by Hans im Glück, and I'm not entirely sure if there wasn't an English language edition even afterwards. But I think in the last 15 years, more and more players here, especially in Europe, are interested in more complex games and in more thematic games. As you said, it's a game, the original edition is from the 80s, and at that time, very few games with a strong theme that were pretty complex were published within Germany by a German publisher. So first Mosquito games from Kalle Schmiel, from the designer, and then the second edition done by Hans im Glück. But this has definitely changed. It's more a global gaming scene now. And people both in the US, of course also in Asia, but over here in Germany too, are looking forward to more thematic games. And it doesn't necessarily is a bad thing if they take more than 2 hours to complete. That's another factor. For 10 years, in my opinion, at least games in Germany had to be 60 minutes tops or 45 minutes tops, especially because of Game of the Year. Lots of the companies here, they want to win that award. So they try to move their games into that direction, trying to determine what the jury Game of the Year would think is a good candidate. And of course, Die Macher in 1997, it was nominated for a Game of the Year, but it had no chance to win that award. It was more to add this game from the 80s to it, to have a legendary game there, but everybody knew no chance to win that award. But as I said, the times have definitely changed in this regard. Yeah.
So tell me about your history as a gamer with Die Macher. Before we get on to the crude, capitalistic money publisher element, what's your experience as a gamer? Is it a game that is new to you? Have you been playing it for 20 years?
No, actually not. So I played the first edition in the 80s, but probably only 2 or 3 times. Because at that time, no vessel module, no electronic gaming, so you had to sit down to find opponents for that game, for such a game, and that of course was not easy. So I just played it a handful of time, and actually I never ever played the newer Hans im Glück edition from '97, just the old one, and only this summer at Mallorca, so in Spain, I played a 4-player game with Philipp from Eggert Games, with Matthias Notch from Frosted Games, and with Kalle himself. So we sat down, and I immediately loved the game again. But it was, although I couldn't remember a lot, but I immediately saw that this is still a great game. So that is my history playing Die Macher. So not a lot of games played by me.
So was this deal to bring it back into print made over the chocolate nights of Mallorca drinking sangria over a game of Die Macher?
Not exactly. So I know Kalle also for many, many years, and we had exchanged a couple of emails before. And I knew that he was looking for a new publisher, for a new edition for the game. So, and I had already told him that I'm interested. And I told him, well, we are meeting in a couple of weeks, so let's play the game and let's talk a little bit more. And right now, I'm really excited for this. Yeah.
So let's talk about what's different with this version of Die Macher then, because people joke about Die Macher because of its theme, that it's German regional politics, and it seems quite a niche theme, and it seems the sort of archetypical theme of Eurogames. The nicher, the better. So what differences are you making to this new edition?
Yeah, I have to admit that the reason why the game is only published in 2019 is because Kalle still has to do a couple of changes. So development is not 100% completed, but definitely it's still Die Macher from the 80s. Yeah. But there's also a short game. We are talking about a game that could last 4 or 5 or 6 hours. Now there's a version that can be played in 2 hours, so still not really short, but a lot shorter. And some things have been drastically changed. So, for example, the English term, so a Prognose, Wahlvorhersage.
The forecast is
forecast, exactly. A forecast, and this was a little bit too random. In the opinion of a lot of people. And now you have some knowledge because of these forecasts before an election, a regional election, and this is definitely, in my opinion, a major improvement. There are other changes, but still nothing is written in stone, and it's still Die Macher. So it's not that you're now seeing, wow, this is completely different. No, it is not.
And it's still German regional politics, still the SPD, the CDU. I guess it's the version I played didn't have Die Linke in because it was
still PDS. Yes, it was still
exactly.
PDS in the 97 edition, and of course now it will be Die Linke, and we have to look into the other parties, of course, in the party names, but basically it's...
Are you gonna, so for all those who don't know about German politics, go to Google now. So are the AfD going to be included? Good. That's a good thing.
I don't want to see these 3 letters in this combination in one of my games. So it definitely won't happen. Fortunately, right now it's not as big that it needs to be covered in the game. So
right, absolutely. And so let's talk about your role in bringing this to publication. As a publisher, are you just facilitating the publication? Are you helping with the development?
Yeah, so first the lead developer definitely is Kalle and his team in southern Germany, that's for sure. But of course, I will do some minor development later in the game, so starting later in the process, so starting next year. Probably also with Henning, he's from 2F Games, and he's always a developer for my games. So we will do something, but the major work will be accomplished by Kalle and his team. But the new edition will have all new graphics, and all my games are using the amazing talent of Harald Lieske, who is a local from here. So it will definitely look a lot different as well. But it's not that I'm changing a couple of major things. I can't do this, and I don't want to do this.
And so, what is your forecast for the game? Do you envisage it being a great success? Do you think the world is ready for Die Macher to come back, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, well, I don't know. And basically, I don't care. This is the truth. So I'm doing, as you know, with Spielbergs, I'm doing a 1000 print run, German and English language. And you never know what will happen in 2019, but I think and I hope that the game will sell out quickly, very quickly. But this is really based on a 1000 print run. And you also probably know that I'm never doing a second edition, but that I license my games to other publishers. And this is a real indication if the world needs a new edition of Die Macher. So most of the time I'm selling out of my 1000 copies, but if there is not a second edition, this is a strong indication that the market, the world, the gaming world doesn't need a new edition at all. But I think there will be more language editions at a later time, but you never know what will happen. You never know.
But what has the initial reaction been? Over the internet, people you spoke to at Essen, this sort of stuff, that you're bringing Die Macher back?
Very enthusiastic. So really very enthusiastic, and also very surprised that Spielbergs is picking up this game and not a somewhat larger publisher. But sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's just your network. So I was probably somewhat faster than others because I'm as I said, I know Kalle very well, and probably others said, well, there will never be a new edition of Die Macher. They most probably never asked him.
Why do you think that's been the case? Because, I mean, since I became a gamer, which was about 6 years ago, all I've ever heard is Die Macher, Die Macher, Die Macher. It's one of those games that gets mentioned in the same breath as Through the Ages, gets mentioned in the same breath as Kalis. You know, it's a sort of legend within gaming. Why has it taken so long, do you think?
Yeah, frankly, I do not exactly know, but one reason, maybe, I'm really saying maybe, that Kalle is an older person, so even a little bit older than me, which is hardly possible, but it is.
What you mean? He's 25?
He's 24, yeah, and but Kalle, which I really, really like, is not a person who is using a smartphone very often. He is not connected to social media at all. So he has his email address, but that's what he's doing. So you have to go really reach out to him. So you don't see him on Twitter, and where you can ask him, what about your new game? What about Die Macher? So can we talk about it? So you have to take some effort to reach him, and this is probably one of the major reasons. But yeah, I don't know exactly.
And so just for our listeners who may not know, can you give us a brief sort of history of Spielbergs and your ethos behind the company?
Yeah, Spielbergs was founded in 2010, and first I wanted to localize some US war games and heavy games, and that's what I did initially. So my first game was a German edition of Washington's War from GMT Games, a card-driven game, because I'm a huge Mark Herman fanboy. And I localized a couple of other war games from the US, but then I got my first designs of Euro-style games, heavier Euro-style games, and it's definitely also an economic thing, because these games with a 1000 print run sell out much more quickly. And on top of that, I have not only the German language rights, but also the English language rights or worldwide language rights. So this makes it also a lot easier. But I'm a wargamer, so I love war games, but right now I'm doing more the heavier Euro type games. So I'm doing this for 7 years. And the reason to start Spielbergs was because I wanted to do exactly the games that I want to play. So I'm in the gaming industry since 93, so 1993, so for a long time, and I always worked in various capacities for other publishers. 100%. So this is also very good because it's a safe thing. You're getting your monthly payment. But after a while I thought, well, it's you need to try your own thing. And of course, Spielbergs is a low risk thing. So let's assume in 2010, Washington's War wouldn't have sold. Then I could simply close down the website and end Spielbergs. And I was sure that my initial investment, which of course was low, that I would get a return. Maybe not make any profits out of it, but it was always or is always a low risk thing. Yeah.
And so I played Kalamaja at the weekend.
Okay.
And
did you like it?
I did. I thought it was actually really very clever.
Okay.
In fact, and I was terrible at it, but then again, I'm terrible at games. But it was actually. But I was surprised at how light isn't the word, but accessible. Is this a departure for Spielbergs? Because usually they're heavier games. This one seemed very very accessible, very easy to pick up.
Yes, but this is. It's a very good question, but Kalamaja is just developed by Spielbergs. So it's published by Blackfire. This is a totally different company, a much larger company with about, in Germany, a little bit more than 50 employees. And I'm just trying to find games for them, and then I develop them, but they are published by Blackfire. So, and there is no hard border between Blackfire and Spielbergs, but the general rule is that Blackfire gets games from me that are up to Kennerspiel. So Kraftwagen, West of Africa, Kingsville, Kalamaja, these are not easy family type games, although, as you said, the mechanics of Kalamaja are not too difficult, but playing the game well is difficult. And everything that is more than Kennerspiel goes to, so real expert games, they go to Spielbergs. But of course, some people think Gentes is lighter than Kraftwagen. Others would say, wow, Kraftwagen is so complex. It's definitely not a Kennerspiel. You know there is no hard border. But this is a general rule. Yeah.
And so we have Die Macher, which is coming out at Essen. Is this the only Spielbergs publication, or is there anything else to announce in the future?
No. The next game will be The Sense of Time, which is a civilization type game, very large. It should be out in early 1918. After that, there will be Ground Floor, which is the second edition, but heavily modified from an early TMG game from 2012 by David Short. Then we have a game called Auf der Walz, which is a German-European tradition that as a craftsman, I don't know the English term of. I'm sorry for Auf der Walz.
It's those guys who sort of walk around. They become apprentices and they walk around the countries offering.
And they are offering their work to anybody, and this is a European tradition for hundreds of years, but it's still done today. And the rule is that you cannot return to your hometown for 3 years and 1 day. So 3 years and 1 day. But if you really accomplish this, then afterwards you can pick up any job anywhere, because people know, employers know you're good with any crafts, or you start your own business. And the author of that game, he was actually Auf der Walz a couple of years ago, so I think 20 years ago. So this is also a very exciting game, in my opinion.
I spoke to one of these guys. I was in the pub one night, and because they wear distinctive clothing, you definitely know who these guys are. They wear sort of black overalls with white buttons on them, and they often wear hats. And I got chatting to one of these guys in the pub, and we had some beers, and it sounds like a hell of a 3 years.
Yeah, it's something well, I most probably could not do this, especially in young years. It's hard to be that long away from home. You basically have no social life, and of course, you never know what the future will bring. Maybe not even the next day. So this is something that is really strange, in my opinion, but also most exciting. And most of these people. Yeah, most of these people are quite some characters if they have really accomplished it. So I'm looking forward to that game. And then for Essen 2018, because Die Macher is only for 2019. So Essen 2018 is Jason Dinger's Captains of the Gulf. It's also very much a niche theme. It's fishing in the Gulf of Mexico. So, but I did Coal and Colony, which is coal mining in a part of the Ruhr area. So I love these really heavy, strong thematic games. So these are the next couple of games. And if you allow me to briefly talk a little bit more about Kalle, the Die Macher designer, I will also do his very first game from the 80s. It's called Lieber bayerisch sterben als königlich verderben. So, which is actually a light war game in the I think in the early 18th century. I have to check this, maybe wrong, but this game has to be really heavily modified. It's only for 2020 because you notice there are lots of fresh and great ideas in the game, but it was Kalle's first published game and it's more than 30 years old, so it needs a lot of work to bring it up to standards. But I'm also here very excited to do a new edition, and this game was never available in English language, just in German language from Mosquito.
Yeah, it's very exciting to revisit old things and revamp them and bring them out in after what we've learned over the last 30 years. It's a very exciting development, I think. Excellent. Well, Uli, thank you very much for giving over your time. And hopefully you won't be late for your Vassal session.
No, I'm not. It's only 30 minutes off. So we are playing a 3-player Churchill game, one conference at a time. So and it's an exciting game, and especially if you do not have to set it up. It's in the computer. Whenever we three have time, we play for one conference, which is 45 to 60 minutes. So perfect for that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure everyone who's listening to this is looking forward to Die Macher.
That would be nice. I thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.